Not So Average Builder is sponsored by USAGundamStore.com, bringing the hobby to your front door. Use promo code NOTSOAVERAGE and get 10% off your next order. Today, we're going to work on airbrush transitions. Hey guys, Tom here, and this is Not So Average Builder. Now I know, it seems that we're moving kind of quick. Last week we covered just thinning your paints for an airbrush, and now we're going to an advanced step like airbrush transitions. I promise you it is super simple. It is nowhere near as difficult as you think it is. I thought it was incredibly difficult until I tried it the first time, and it was the easiest thing that I've ever done. If you can quick clean your airbrush to change paints, then you can create airbrush transitions. It's just a couple extra steps in there, but it's simple, and you'll see that in a minute. Before we get into that though, I want to say, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions about this topic, drop a comment down below. Let's talk about Patreon as well. I currently have 3 patrons. It's amazing. Oh, I'm humbled. I want to thank 3 awesome individuals. We've got Walter, Chris D, and Fiddlesworth Frank for being amazing people. So thank you all for doing that, for being awesome. 100% of the money made on Patreon goes back into the channel to help do bigger and better things on this channel. If you'd like to become a patron of the channel, head on over to patreon.com/NotSoAverageBuilder and sign up today. I have multiple tiers and give backs for people who hold a specific tier for X amount of months or X amount of time that gives back to you all. But enough rambling on, let's jump right into this. Alright, so I'm going to show you in this video how I did this. In this video we're going to talk about creating awesome transitions without using a paintbrush. So what I recommend doing this with is if you have a large army that you're wanting to paint a lot of in a short amount of time, the airbrush can do a majority of the work for you. It just takes a little extra effort. But with these, you definitely need to do this. It will save you a ton of time. It'll allow you to get your army to the tabletop that much sooner. But without further ado, let's jump right in. Let's take Secret Weapon Miniatures rubber, and we're going to mix it a little bit with rubber highlight. I kind of forgot to film the first little bit of this, but we can pick up where we left off and it's no big deal. So basically what I'm doing is I'm making the rubber a little bit brighter because I've already gotten the first and the second highlight. Now we're going to be doing the third. And it wasn't light enough for where I wanted to, and this is showing you real time. It is a little sped up, but real time how I kind of get my colors where I want them to. And this is going to tie in with last week's video. So the paint didn't want to spray out very well, right? So what you do is you unscrew the lock for the needle, pull the needle back out, and you kind of prime the pump a little bit and clean it with the front. Now when it comes to actually placing your highlights, you can do a top down, you can do a side, just wherever your light source is coming from. In this case I'm just doing a top down, a simple one. You can kind of see, especially on this guy, where I'm placing them. So I've done my first couple of highlights and they kind of don't show up as much, but they're there. Now when you're doing this, I kind of do a smaller area, so you've done your previous in a wider range and you're just going to kind of bring it down a little bit each time until you're getting your final highlight where it's the smallest but brightest. We'll just kind of go through this and show you, where I've placed it, and this is sped up so I don't airbrush this quickly. I kind of wish I did, but I would never ever get it looking good if I did. And remember that acrylic paints also dull down because you are using an airbrush. You're basically just creating a little light wash in that area, so it will seem really bright and everything when you first put it on there, but as it dries it dulls down and mattes down quite a bit. So you can kind of see here, this is freshly after it's done, still kind of there, but it's a nice little transition. Now here comes the fun part. When you clean your airbrush out, you don't want to get rid of all of the paint, especially when you're going to do a transition. You want to marry the previous color and the current color. So basically all I do is I leave a little bit of the dirty paint water from the previous color, add in some of the gray that I'm going to for my final highlight, and then you kind of mix those two together, and that gives you your transitional period or transitional color that will make a seamless blend. I didn't have enough of the previous color in there, so I'm kind of adding a little bit more. And this is just the hardest part about it. You kind of have to feel your way on what colors are going to work the way you want them to. And we'll do our backflow technique where it kind of percolates the pot. Now this, because it was the gray and it was really, really thick, it did give me some issues. So you see I'm adding a little bit more flow improver to kind of get this as thin as I want it to. And it's thin in the pot, but it doesn't want to spray. So we're going to do that technique again where you prime the pump. And you always want to make sure you clean your tip after you've done this, otherwise you could run into tip dry. And it's still not. So this is kind of a, you see me how I'm doing it and how I've learned over the past 6 months of airbrushing on what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And these are things that you're going to learn by doing them. And you see I've got a perfect spray out, and now we're going to do the second to final highlight color. And you want to do it in a smaller area than the previous. And you're going to keep doing this over and over again until you get to your final highlight color, which in this case is just going to be the graphite from scale 75, just straight graphite. And here is it. This is the proper way to do it. This is how I've done it. Obviously this is your graphite, and I've done my flow improver in the bottom of the pot. Actually, looking at this video, I may have accidentally used just straight water, and that will be why I didn't want to spray to begin with, but that's no big deal. But you see I'm getting in really, really tight. I'm getting tiny little focused highlights essentially, and a lot of that's going to be covered up by the trim once I paint that in, so I'm not too awful worried about it. But you're going to kind of go through all your models, and you can do an assembly line and do this over and over again, but as you can see, it looks amazing. Just like that, you can get some awesome airbrush transitions with that simple technique. Goes along with last week's video where I showed you how to thin your paints properly and mixing them in the pot to create those awesome transitions this week. If you have any questions, drop a comment down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to see this army take shape. But that's all I've got for you guys. Have a good day, guys. Bye.